floor on bricks about 16 inches off the floor. There were probably 50 people in this camp at the time when I got there. I was, excuse me, I was the 72nd American captured in North Vietnam. Now, when I'm talking, I can only talk about North Vietnam. The prisoners that were captured in South Vietnam had a completely different experience than what we went through. They weren't subjected to some of the stuff we were, but their living conditions were atrocious compared to what we had. And they were on the move a lot. The prisoners that were captured in Laos had a completely different experience than any of the rest of us. Now, some of the guys that were captured in the South were moved north into North Vietnam. And a few were moved out of Laos into North Vietnam later on. The longest held prisoner in Hanoi, North Vietnam, was El Alvarez. He was shot down in the first Gulf of Tonkin attack in August of 1964. So he was there a long time. And I thought when I got there, how could a guy survive there? He'd been there 17 months already when I got there. And I thought, oh my God. You know, I figured I might have to stay there a year. And I started a countdown at that point. But all the time in my mind, how could they put up with this for that long? The routine in that first camp was, we got our first meal about 10, 11 o'clock in the morning. There was a gong that rang, 6 o'clock in the morning. Everybody get up and about then. And I said, most of us were in either 1 or 2 man cells at that time. And then 11 o'clock or so, we would get our first meal. And you got a loaf of bread, small loaf of French bread, and a bowl of soup. That was the meal. The soups that we got were usually 1 of 3 varieties. So we got cabbage soup, which was lukewarm water with a few leaves of cabbage in it. Pumpkin soup. Pumpkin was squares of pumpkin that were partially cooked. Most of them were kind of hard in lukewarm water. And the other one we called sewer grass soup. No idea what it was, but it was green and slimy looking. The bread would have really been good had it been served fresh. But they would get a GI truckload of bread at a time. And they just offloaded that and threw it into an empty cell. And passed a little bit of it out every day, and it stayed there until it was all gone. Well, when you make bread and don't have any preservatives in it, and just throw it into a dank cell and leave it for 3 weeks or so, it grows green stuff inside of it. So a lot of times you'd break open a little loaf of bread and it would be so green that you just couldn't. Plus, they had the biggest rats running around that country they ever imagined. And they ran rampant over the bread store. Sometimes the bread was not very appetizing to look at. I forced myself to eat stuff that I would never think that I could put down the throat. At one time we started getting some canned or dried fish that came along with our soup, a little plate of dried fish. It had started out as dried fish, but by the time they got what they were giving us, we got the bones and the eyes and the scales, and it was salty, but there was very little actual fish on it. But I managed to chew that stuff and eat every bit of it. When I did get a cellmate 13 months after I was there, he was trying to pick out just the fish itself and avoiding the bones, and he saw me eat that. He said, "What are you doing?" And that's the only protein we're getting. You know, even though the bones might stick in my roof of my mouth or whatever, I'm going to chew him down and get him. So the next time we got it, we didn't get it very often, but he was there chewing it down as well. Our second meal at the zoo came about 6 o'clock in the evening, and it was usually the same thing that you got in the morning. Every evening we would get a broadcast over the camp radio, we call it. Every cell had a speaker in it, and they played us the Voice of Vietnam. Hanoi Hannah would come on with her transmission to the GIs in South Vietnam, and they played that over the speaker to us. Some of her broadcasts were hilarious. In the first 6 months I was there, they claimed to have shot down more aircraft than the U.S. had in its entire inventory. My first month in that camp, they moved me to a little gate house, and I spent time out there, and that's where I made the first contact with another American. This is about 2 months after I'd been captured, and they called up to me one day from the main compound and wanted to know if I knew the tap code. I hadn't thought about the tap code for years. When I went through survival school, there was a guy there that said when they put us into the simulated prison situation, we can communicate with each other. Here's a code. And that was dummy. We're going to have been out in the mountains running around for a week. They're going to put us in this little cubby hole. I'm going to sleep. I'm not going to be trying to tap you because I'm going to see you tomorrow in the classroom. And so I just ignored what he had to say. But when this guy started explaining this tap code to me, boy, a light bulb went off. And I remembered, you drop the letter K from the alphabet, so you have 25 letters. You divide it into a matrix of 25 letters in each row in 5 rows. And then the first tap indicated which row, and the second set of taps what letter in the row. It was amazing, once you learned that code, how much information you could pass. I found I could tap really well, but when I first moved into a cell block where I had somebody living on the other side of the wall, I had one heck of a time comprehending the code. I was trying to count letters on my fingers and taps, but it took me probably 6 months to really master the code. But once I got it down, I could just like I was talking to you, I could rattle off the code. If I wanted to send my name Dan, I would go, and I just spelled out Dan. And it was important that we have communication. We wanted to know who was in the camp, wanted to know what the interrogations were consisting of, what questions were being asked in the interrogation, and so on. The early guys that had been captured, initially, the treatment was pretty good. The first 7, 8 guys there, they brought the food in. They didn't prepare it in the camp. They brought it in. The treatment was not bad at all. About 2 months before I got there was when the first prisoners were tortured. And then they started a systematic program of torture. Every new guy, they were after information. One of the big things they wanted was war crime confessions. They wanted apologies for bombing their country. They wanted people that were badly injured to write statements of the good treatment they were receiving before they would give them medical treatment. People were tortured to write statements of good treatment, if you can imagine that. But anyway, I spent some time in that camp, and then they moved me to a camp west of Hanoi, a place we called Briar Patch. There were 50 of us there. We were all in solitary. This was really a rough place, about 40 miles west of Hanoi. The cells there were about the same size. The beds now, instead of being made out of 1-inch boards, were made out of 2-inch thick boards. there were no lights in the zoo. We had electric light bulb that hung from the ceiling and stayed there like 24 hours a day. There was no electricity at the briar patch. It was pitch black when the door was closed up. We had my cell had a window that had a shutter on it, so a little light filtered in, but it was very dark. The routine was a little different out there, and our first meal came before daylight. And now instead of getting a little loaf of bread, we got a little bowl of rice. The second meal came after dark. The time in between our arms were tied behind our backs, and then the guard would leave, and that's where you spent the day. Again, we spent a lot of time tapping on the wall, and we usually did that during their siesta hour. When they had siesta, they usually just had a pair of guards roaming the camp. We'd keep track of where they were. Once they were out of our area, we could get on and communicate with each other. My first meal there, I remember sitting down and getting my bowl of rice in the dark. I was feeling around to get a spoon to eat my soup, and then I reached down to get my bowl of rice, and taste something's running all over my hand. And finally I realized it was these big water roaches. They were about that big. And if you set your rice down on the bunk, those things just came by the dozens, and they were, so you had to keep sitting on your lap and keep swishing them away so they didn't get more of the rice than you did. It was there when I got a tube of toothpaste and a toothbrush. I'd been there 3 months or so, and I finally got a toothbrush and a little baby toothpaste. And the first night we had that, I fell one of the 2 cells down and heard a horrible ruckus at 2 o'clock in the morning. Well, the next day, when we finally got around to tapping, of course, it had to pass through 1 cell and then mine, and found out that Tom Barrett had put his tube of toothpaste under his mosquito net with him. And sometime during the night, a rat had chewed a hole through the mosquito net and was trying to carry his toothpaste away. And so here he's wrestling in the dark with a big rat that's trying to carry his new tube of toothpaste away. While I was at the briar patch, there was, seemed every month there was something that come along. Now during the Gulf War, they talked a lot about torture and what is torture and so on. And torture can mean different things to different people. You know, you would think of sleep deprivation. I spent many times where they had me sit on a stool before interrogation and say, okay, we're going to let you sit and think about this. Well, 2 days later, they might come back while you're still sitting on the stool. I could go 2 days pretty good with sleep sitting on a stool. But one time they wanted me to write an autobiography, and I wasn't about to write anything. So they took me out and set me on the stool. Well, it wasn't really a stool, it was a cement block built right into the floor, stuck up about 16 inches. And they said, well, we're going to let you sit here and think about it. Well, 1 week later, I was still sitting there, but I had, just, my rear end was so sore. If you got off the stool, they were guards were just outside with a big bamboo club that they reached through and pat you over the head. And after 1 week, my feet had swollen up so big, so much fluid had collected in the legs that I couldn't see my toes. And I decided that this can't be, it's going to kill me. So I just got off and laid down on the floor. It was about midnight and they came through with the clubs and started beating on me, and I said, forget it, I'm not going to do it anymore. So finally, the next day after 1 week on the stool, I finally wrote them an autobiography. During some of my initial interrogations, they knew I was married because I had my wedding ring on. And he wanted to know how many children I had. Well, I had 4, but I told him I didn't have any kids. And the interrogator kept going and going, and when things really got rough, he said, I think you have 2 children. I think you have a boy and a girl. And I said, yes, I've got a boy and a girl. And so that's what I told him all the time after that. During the initial interrogation, too, at first I didn't really have a good cover story prepared, which I should have had. So I was making it up on the fly. But then I had to be really careful to make sure that I remembered exactly what I told them. Because every interrogation went back over and over and over and over, and you had to have it exactly the same. And I felt really good because I was able to stick with my story and never stepped off. I came from a poor farm just outside of Ladysmith. My parents were peasants. We had 2 cows, we had 2 pigs, 4 chickens. And I had 2 kids. And that was the story of the family that I stuck with. It was my first mission in Vietnam. Actually, it was my 170th. But I had just arrived in South Vietnam. I had no idea where we were going. They told me to get on the wing of the other man and follow him and not ask any questions. And that was the story I stuck with. And I think one thing that probably helped me out was after I was shot down, before I arrived in Hanoi, they had captured 2 other RF-101 pilots. And so I think they were probably getting the information they needed from them, and they kind of left me out. I found when they were interrogating me about the airplane that I flew, it was kind of hard to really make stuff up because they sat there behind the desk with the pilot's handbook, and all they were going through, well, how many cameras do you have? What kind of cameras do you have? Well, they got the book there, and they're